Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Tigers Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Chris Schulte. It is Tuesday, January 31st, which means pitchers and catchers report in just over 2 weeks. If you look at the schedule, the Tigers pitchers and catchers reporting on the 15th of February, and we're excited about that. That's a good thing. I know people are saying, "Oh, yeah, you can't. They're not going to be very good. This is going to be blah 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 blah." Look, it's baseball, and to me, that's all that matters. It's baseball, and baseball is back, and the off season is over, and you never know what's going to happen on the field. So for me, I don't have a problem. Look, do I want my Tigers to win? Yes. Do I want them to go to the World Series and win it all? Yes. That would be great. I haven't had a World Series championship in my life since 1984. I was 9 years old at the time. I barely remember because I wasn't into baseball yet. The first time that I can remember the Tigers being in the playoffs was 1987, when they lost to the Minnesota Twins in the league championship series, because at the time it was just the Western Division and the Eastern Division. There was no Central in the American League or the National League. So they went to the playoffs, and that was it. There was no wild cards. It was the winner of the East, which was the Tigers, courtesy of beating the Blue Jays on the last day of the season, versus the Minnesota Twins, who were the winners of the West. So, and then of course we had the magical runs in 2006 and 2012, and I mean that's when the Tigers were good. But yeah, I don't really remember much about the '84 World Series. Kirk Gibson's home run, because everybody's seen that. But I was actually watching Game 5 a few months ago, and I was looking at it, and I was like, I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. I don't know. So from that standpoint, yes, it's going to be. I would love to see that again. I would love to see us just clobber everybody in the Central and clobber everybody in the American League and win the division and the league title and go to the World Series and win the World Series. It would be great. And it would be validation for A.J. Hinch, because we would have done it without sign stealing, and that would have been fine for me. But what I really am happy about is the fact that there is baseball being played. And it's going to be a full spring training this year. It's going to be a full 162-game schedule this year. It's just good to have baseball completely back. And that's the way I feel about it. I want to go into something that read an email, a little part of an email that was sent to me by Chris Bondi in Bell River, Ontario, which isn't too far from where I'm actually recording this podcast. So there you go. He basically said that, because I had said on my podcast that I don't think Scott Harris understood that Chris Ilitch was going to be giving out big contracts. I think he knew that. So what he basically said that was that I think Scott Harris knew what he was getting into, what he was signing on to when he got hired. I think Chris Ilitch told him from the jump that they weren't going to be giving out any big contracts. What I don't understand is why they didn't assign a few more players like Andrew Benintendi. He's not a star, but at least can help out a little bit. Which this gets into actually what I was going to talk about on this podcast anyway. So thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that. If anybody else wants to send comments, you can, of course, comment on the YouTube page, youtube.com/@TB podcast. Or you can send me messages on Twitter, mentions or DMs at Tigers or at Podcast Tigers on Twitter. I'm also on Mastodon now, which is at TB Podcast at hitithere.cafe. So you can find me there as well. Find the Tigers Baseball Podcast there as well. So the comment that I wanted to make, first of all, Andrew Benintendi is a left-handed bat. And the Tigers have a plethora of left-handed outfielders. Their entire starting outfield is left-handed, no matter who you start, whether it's Akil Baddoo, Austin Meadows, and Riley Green, or Kerry Carpenter, Austin Meadows, and Riley Green, or Kerry Carpenter, Akil Baddoo, Austin Meadows, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, Akil Baddoo. And Parker Meadows, of course, Austin's little brother, is also left-handed. They really don't have any right-handed outfield options. They did in Daz Cameron. They DFA'd him, and he was claimed off of waivers. They did in Derek Hill, and they DFA'd him, and he was claimed off of waivers. Now, Derek Hill was an interesting case because he had a lot of good speed, and he was a heck of a defender. He didn't hit much. He was starting to hit a little bit, but he had some injury concerns. Daz Cameron never hit in the majors. He never hit for Detroit. And so I can understand why they sent him out, why they DFA'd him. They needed to make room on the 40-man roster is what they needed to do. And to do that, in order to get somebody off of the 40-man, you have to designate them for assignment. And then if they clear waivers, you can either outright them to AAA or you can release them. And Daz Cameron was outright or was DFA'd, and somebody, I can't remember who, picked him up on waivers. But he's no longer with the Tigers. Derek Hill was DFA'd during the season last year, and Seattle picked him up. So they had to make room on the 40-man for other players. Now, I believe Steele Walker is a right-handed bat, who was a guy that Detroit claimed who Detroit traded from San Francisco. They sent some cash considerations to San Francisco for Steele Walker. So I do believe he's a right-handed bat. Justin Henry Malloy is a right-handed bat, but I think they want him more for third base instead of a corner outfield spot. So at the end of the day, the reason Detroit didn't sign Benintendi was twofold. First of all, he wanted quite a good chunk of money. I think the White Sox have him for 3 years and $17 million a year, or 2 years and $17 million total, or something like that. Maybe it's 3 years and $17 million. I don't know. But they've got him for an extended period of time, and they've got him for a relatively high price. And Scott Harris didn't want to get into a long contract with an older player, because Benintendi's a little bit older. He didn't want to get into a contract with an older player for multiple years at a high price. Let's look at the highest contract that Scott Harris has given out this year. And that's the $10 million deal that he signed, the $11 million deal that he signed Matt Boyd to. So that's a situation where, number one, Benintendi was left-handed. They weren't looking for a left-handed bat. And number two, Scott Harris didn't want the long contract. He didn't want a 3 or 4 year contract when really what he's trying to do is build prospects. This team is going to be a team that redevelops its farm system. So you look at the deals that Detroit has in place right now, the deals that Scott Harris signed, the free agents, the trades that he's made. The trades that he's made, Joe Jimenez for Justin Henry Malloy and Jake Higginbotham, those are prospects. Justin Henry Malloy started out at high A and went all the way to triple A last year, hit 289 with 17 homers, 97 walks. He had an 862 on base plus slugging last year. So if he continues that this year, you'll see him in the big leagues before the end of the year. I guarantee it. Not to sound like George Zimmer, but yeah, I guarantee it. Jake Higginbotham is a left-hander who throws pretty hard, and you know, you never can have too much left-handed pitching in your system. Gregory Soto and Cody Clemens going to Philly for Donnie Sands, Matt Vierling, and Nick Maton. First of all, Nick Maton's a left-handed infielder. They needed a left-handed infielder. Secondly, Matt Vierling is a right-handed outfielder. And Donnie Sands is a bat-first catcher who apparently has great framing skills, which is kind of interesting considering that the AAA stadiums are all going to have robot umpires calling balls and strikes. So there you go. Which you would think Chris Ilitch would have made a point to explaining to Scott Harris, hey, by the way, we're about to change that. Major League Baseball is about to implement the robo strike zone in AAA. Don't get a catcher who's good at framing pitches. But he was out at the spa. So there you go. And I'm sort of two minds about this deal. I like the Jimenez for Justin Henry Malloy and Jake Higginbotham deal because you got a guy in Justin Henry Malloy who's just a straight up baller. Like, he can hit. Like I said, he hit 289 with 17 homers. I think he had 28 doubles. Drove in over 80 runs last year. Played third base and the corner outfield positions. And of course, you can, like I said, you can never have too many left-handed pitchers. I'm a little concerned about, like, the Soto deal I get. I'm kind of concerned about what they got back, because are these guys that are going to stick? At least 2 out of 3 of them going to stick? Or are all 3 of them going to be either in the minors or out of the Tigers system completely in 2 years? Because Scott Harris specifically said when he signed up, when he had his introductory press conference, we want to acquire, develop, and maintain young talent. Well, you've acquired it. Are you going to be able to develop it and maintain it and sustain it? Because I don't want this to be like the Giants of 2021 that won 107 games and then last year only won 81 games. And who knows what they're going to do this year. If that's what Detroit's going to turn into, then Scott Harris can leave now. I don't want third place every year. And every once in a while we'll get first place. Win the division once every 3 or 4 years. No, I want to win every year. I want above 500 baseball every year. I want people to say about Detroit. That's a great organization to go to, and to hear my guys on MLB Network Radio and on other sports talk outlets to say, yeah, that Tigers team's got it together. That front office has it together. The players are good. The management's good. It's just it's a great organization top to bottom. Great place to play baseball. Fans are great. I want them to talk about Detroit the way they talk about Tampa and the Dodgers and the Padres and the Braves and Cleveland and Minnesota. I want What Are the Tigers Doing Today to be one of the top leads on all of your sports stations during the off season. Because right now, you listen to MLB Network Radio, you listen to any of these baseball shows, and what are the Dodgers up to? What are the Braves up to? What are the Mets up to? What are the Yankees up to? What are the Red Sox up to? What are the Orioles up to? What are the Guardians up to? What are the Twins up to? What are the White Sox up to? What are the Mariners doing? What are the Padres doing? What are the Astros doing? I want the Tigers to be in that conversation